This isn't a sign, and that's why it's so dangerous. It's not a mood that will pass if you give it time. It's not stress from work or life or timing. It's not a rough patch you can communicate your way through. It's a phase. A phase that doesn't announce itself with chaos or conflict, but with calm, with reasonableness, with everything looking fine on the surface, while something essential is quietly shutting down underneath. This is the moment most men relax, because the tension is gone, the arguments have stopped, the pressure has eased. You tell yourself things are stabilizing, that you've turned a corner, that whatever was wrong is finally settling. But what you're actually experiencing isn't peace, it's disengagement. And once a relationship enters this phase, effort stops working. Not because you don't care enough, but because effort only works when there is still emotional friction to work with. In this phase, friction is gone. What replaces it is neutrality. And neutrality is not a pause. It's a direction. She's not pulling away dramatically. She's not pushing you out. She's simply no longer reacting to you in the way that keeps a bond alive. That's why this phase is almost invisible to men until it's too late. There's nothing obvious to fight against, nothing urgent to fix, nothing broken enough to justify action. And by the time the outcome becomes clear, the process has already done its work. By the end of this video, you'll understand the phase most men mistake for stability, why it feels safe even as it's sealing and ending, and why this quiet calm is often the last moment before the direction is locked in for good. Men misread phases as signs because they're conditioned to respond to events, not processes. A sign feels concrete. It feels actionable. An argument happens, distance appears, cheating is suspected. Something breaks the surface and gives you a target. You know where to aim your effort. You know what to fix, what to confront, what to address. A phase doesn't offer that clarity. It doesn't spike. It doesn't explode. It unfolds quietly, internally, without ever asking for your permission to continue. And because there's no clear event to react to, most men assume nothing serious is happening at all. This is why men wait. They wait for fights, for coldness, for obvious withdrawal, for proof that something is wrong enough to justify concern. As long as those markers don't appear, they stay still. They tell themselves they're being calm, mature, patient. In reality, they're being late. Phases don't need arguments to progress. They don't need distance or betrayal to move forward. They advance through subtle internal shifts that never show up as emergencies. While you're waiting for a problem you can see, the real change is already consolidating underneath your feet. Phases operate internally before they ever express themselves externally. The change happens in perception, in emotional weighting, in how meaning is assigned. She doesn't wake up one day and decide something is over. She gradually stops reacting, stops investing, stops needing. And because nothing dramatic is happening, men mistake this withdrawal for stability. Less conflict feels like improvement. Calm feels like resolution. Silence feels like peace. But silence isn't peace when it comes from detachment. It's absence wearing a friendly face. That's why this mistake is so common and so costly. You don't lose relationships in moments. You lose them in phases you don't recognize by the time a moment finally arrives. A conversation, a breakup, a revelation. The phase has already done its work. The outcome feels sudden only because the process was invisible to you. And once you understand this, you stop waiting for signs that justify action and start paying attention to direction instead. Because direction, not drama, is what decides how things end. A phase is not a symptom, and that distinction is where most men get lost. A symptom comes and goes. It spikes, it fades, It reacts to circumstances. A phase is different. A phase is a directional shift. It's movement, not noise. When something becomes a phase, it's no longer asking whether it should continue. It's already continuing. And that's why treating a phase like a sign is so dangerous. Signs fluctuate. One good conversation can soften them. One good weekend can make them disappear. A phase doesn't care about good days. It absorbs them and keeps moving. Signs are reactive. They respond to what happens around them. Phases are cumulative. They compound quietly over time. Each day may look similar to the last, but internally something is stacking, reinforcing, settling into place. That's why men get fooled by temporary improvements. A smile returns. A conversation feels lighter. Tension drops, and they think the problem is gone. But phases don't reverse because of moments. They reverse only when the direction changes early enough to matter. Once momentum builds, surface-level effort doesn't touch it. This is also why phases only move forward unless they're interrupted early. They don't pause out of courtesy. They don't wait for clarity. They don't care if you're confused or hopeful. The internal shift keeps advancing because it's no longer about what's happening between you. It's about what's happening inside her. By the time you feel safe again, the phase has already traveled further than you realize. What feels like stability is often just quiet momentum. Men try to negotiate with phases the same way they negotiate with signs. They talk more. They reassure more. They show up harder. They wait for feedback. But phases don't respond to persuasion. They respond to direction. And once a phase has locked in its direction, no amount of communication can talk it back to where it started. That's why this line matters more than most men want to admit. You can ignore a sign, but you can't negotiate with a phase. By the time you realize you're in one, the real question is no longer how to fix it, but whether you recognized it early enough to change its course. The phase men always miss is the one that feels the safest on the surface and the most terminal underneath. It's called emotional neutralization, and it's where everything loud disappears. No fighting, no drama, no emotional spikes, no polarity. The relationship doesn't feel broken. It feels flat. She's calm, reasonable, composed. Conversations are polite. Disagreements dissolve quickly. There's no urgency in her voice, no charge in her reactions, no push or pull to respond to. And that's exactly why men misread this phase as maturity, progress, or stability, when in reality it's disengagement fully settling in. In emotional neutralization, she's no longer invested enough to react strongly. Anger requires energy. Passion requires risk. Even jealousy requires care. Neutrality requires nothing. When she stops fighting, she hasn't found peace. She's found distance. You'll notice that nothing seems to bother her the way it used to. Your mistakes don't trigger emotion. Your absence doesn't create tension. Your presence doesn't change the atmosphere. She's no longer pulled toward you or pushed away from you. You simply don't move her the same way. And that's the tell most men overlook. This phase kills polarity because polarity depends on contrast. Desire needs friction. Connection needs responsiveness. Emotional neutralization removes both. There's no spark to work with and no conflict to repair. Everything becomes reasonable, measured, and emotionally flat. Men relax here because the pressure is gone. The relationship feels easier. But ease without engagement is decay. It's not a sign that things are improving. It's a sign that the emotional bond is no longer active enough to generate resistance. This is why the line matters. When she stops reacting to you, she's already moved past you. Not physically yet, not logistically yet, but emotionally, the shift has happened. She's no longer orienting herself around your reactions, your presence, or your approval. She's already practicing a version of herself that doesn't need you to feel regulated or whole. And once emotional neutralization sets in, the phase isn't waiting for your effort to catch up. It's simply waiting for the next step to arrive on its own. This phase feels safe because it removes pressure, and pressure is what most men are trying to escape. When the arguments stop, when the emotional spikes disappear, when the tension drains out of the room, men interpret that as stability. Calm feels like balance. Reduced conflict feels like progress. The absence of confrontation feels like a problem being solved. And that's the psychological trap. Men are wired to associate peace with security, not realizing that peace created by detachment is not peace at all. It's resignation. In this phase, nothing is demanding your attention anymore. She's not questioning you. She's not challenging you. She's not pulling you into emotional exchanges that require effort or presence. And because there's no immediate threat, your nervous system relaxes. You stop scanning for danger. You stop adjusting. You stop leading. You assume the relationship has stabilized, when in reality, it's gone quiet. Because there's nothing left she needs from you emotionally. The bond hasn't strengthened, it's thinned. Reduced conflict is especially deceptive. Men think fewer arguments mean better communication, more maturity, more compatibility. But conflict only disappears when one person stops caring enough to push back. In emotional neutralization, she's no longer trying to change the dynamic. She's no longer invested in getting through to you. She's conserving energy, and that conservation feels like harmony, even though it's actually withdrawal. Harmony requires engagement. Withdrawal just looks smooth. This is why men relax when women detach. Detachment removes friction. It removes demand. It removes emotional responsibility. And men, mistaking relief for resolution, sink into complacency right when awareness is most needed. They stop generating polarity. They stop introducing direction. They stop creating the emotional contrast that keeps a relationship alive. The calm sedates them into stillness. The danger is that this safety is temporary and one-sided. While you're resting in the absence of pressure, she's adjusting to life without emotional dependence on you. She's learning how to feel regulated, calm, and self-contained without your presence being necessary. And once that adjustment completes, the outcome is already decided. The relationship doesn't end in a storm. It ends after a long stretch of quiet, where you mistook detachment for peace. That's why this phase is so lethal. It doesn't feel like a warning. It feels like relief. And by the time the truth becomes obvious, you've already relaxed your grip on the very things that could have changed the direction early enough to matter. What's actually happening inside her during this phase has very little to do with you and the way you think, and everything to do with how her internal world is reorganizing. She isn't sitting there weighing pros and cons, asking herself whether to leave or stay. That decision-oriented framing is how men think. What she's doing is quieter and more decisive at the same time. She's rewriting the story. The narrative of the relationship shifts from "this is who we are" to "this is what happened." The past becomes something to interpret instead of something to protect. Moments that once felt meaningful get reframed as lessons. Sacrifices become explanations. The emotional weight of shared history starts to thin. At the same time, she begins detaching her identity from the relationship. She stops defining herself through the we and starts strengthening the me, not aggressively, not rebelliously, subtly. She becomes more internally self-referenced. Her moods regulate without you. Her sense of self stabilizes without your input. She no longer checks emotionally to see where you are before deciding how she feels. This isn't coldness. It's independence being practiced in real time. As that happens, future plans quietly separate. Not canceled, just unlinked. She still imagines the future, but it becomes less specific, less shared. The language shifts from "we will" to "I'll see." She's no longer building forward with you emotionally. She's building a future that could include you, but doesn't require you. And that distinction is critical, because once the future no longer needs you, the present stops fighting to keep you relevant. This is emotional independence training. She's rehearsing life without emotional reliance on you while staying physically present. She's learning how to feel okay, regulated, and complete without drawing energy from the bond. That's why she seems calm. That's why she seems reasonable. That's why nothing feels urgent anymore. She's not deciding whether to leave. She's learning how to feel okay without you. And once that learning is complete, the relationship doesn't need a dramatic ending. It simply becomes unnecessary. Effort fails in this phase because it's being applied to the wrong condition. Effort works in conflict. When there is tension, disagreement, emotional friction, effort can still influence direction. Conflict means engagement. It means both people are still invested enough to push, resist, react. In that environment, communication matters. Presence matters. Adjustments can still land. But disengagement is different. Disengagement is quiet. It's settled. And effort has no leverage there because there's nothing left actively resisting you. This is where men exhaust themselves, doing more of what no longer registers. More communication is the first mistake. You try to talk things through, to clarify feelings, to check in emotionally. But communication only works when the other person is still trying to be understood. In this phase, she already understands. She's not confused. She's detached. So your words don't create closeness. They create distance. Each conversation feels heavier, more unnecessary, because you're speaking into a space she's already moved out of emotionally. Then comes more reassurance. You affirm commitment. You promise consistency. You remind her of the bond, the history, the future. But reassurance only matters when someone is afraid of losing you. In this phase, she's already practicing not needing you. Your reassurance doesn't calm her nervous system. It confirms that you're still oriented toward the relationship while she's orienting away from it. That imbalance quietly lowers your position even further. The final mistake is more availability. You make yourself easier to access, more accommodating, more present. You think closeness will bring her back. But over-availability collapses polarity, and polarity is the only thing desire responds to. When you remove distance entirely, you remove the last condition that could have reactivated tension or curiosity. You don't pull her back in. You make it easier for her to leave without resistance. This is the critical truth most men learn too late. Effort can't revive something that's already been archived. Once the relationship has been mentally filed away as completed, no amount of energy can reinsert it into the present. Effort doesn't fail because you didn't try hard enough. It fails because the phase you're in no longer responds to trying at all. Every phase has an end, and this one is no exception. The danger is that men believe the ending is something that can still be discussed, delayed, or redirected if they say the right thing at the right time. But once a relationship enters this phase, the destination is already narrowing. The only uncertainty left is how it concludes, not whether it does. This phase doesn't ask where you want it to go. It moves forward on its own momentum, indifferent to your preferences or intentions. There are only two outcomes, and neither one is negotiated in real time. The first is a clean exit. This is when she leaves decisively, calmly, often with language that feels rehearsed and emotionally distant. She explains herself clearly, respectfully, and without much emotion. To you, it feels sudden. To her, it feels overdue. She's already processed the loss internally, which is why she doesn't need chaos to justify leaving. The phase did the work quietly. The conversation is just the paperwork. The second outcome is more insidious. She replaces emotionally before leaving physically. This doesn't always mean another man right away. Sometimes it's attention, sometimes fantasy, sometimes a version of life where she feels like chess without you. But eventually, the emotional bond gets rerouted elsewhere. She's still in the relationship, still present, still functioning, but no longer attached in the way that matters. You become the structure, while something else becomes the source of feeling. And once that replacement is in place, the physical exit becomes easy, almost administrative. Men suffer most here because they believe staying present means staying relevant. They think proximity equals position. But in this phase, proximity is irrelevant. Emotional position has already shifted. Whether she leaves cleanly or replaces emotionally first, the ending arrives without asking for your consent. That's what makes this phase so unforgiving. It doesn't respond to hope, effort, or patience. It responds only to timing. And by the time most men realize which outcome is unfolding, the phase has already chosen for them. At this point, the focus has to shift because everything else has already moved. The only question that matters is no longer about her feelings, her intentions, or her next move. It's about your timing. Did you recognize the phase early, when awareness still had leverage? Or did you confuse silence for peace and calm for safety? That question determines whether you respond from clarity or react from loss. Because once the phase advances past a certain point, insight stops being preventive and becomes explanatory. It helps you understand what happened, but it no longer changes the outcome. Most men fail here because they keep their attention locked outward. They analyze her tone, her behavior, her words, searching for certainty. But certainty doesn't come from her at this stage. It comes from recognizing patterns early enough to act while direction is still flexible. Silence feels like relief, so men relax. Calm feels like resolution, so men wait. And waiting is what costs them timing. By the time they realize silence wasn't peace, the phase has already hardened into conclusion. This is where responsibility returns to you, not as blame, but as power. Timing isn't about control. It's about perception. It's about seeing direction before it becomes destination. Men don't lose women because they're bad, weak, or unworthy. They lose timing. They react after momentum has already passed the point where reaction matters. They show up once the emotional work is already done internally. And no amount of presence can compete with a decision that's been quietly rehearsed over time. Understanding this reframes everything. It removes the illusion that there was a single moment you failed or a single thing you should have said differently. There wasn't. There was a phase you didn't name while it was still forming. And once you see that, you stop obsessing over what she's doing and start asking what you missed, not to punish yourself, but to sharpen your perception for the future. Because phases don't repeat exactly, but they rhyme. And the man who learns to recognize them early doesn't chase outcomes anymore. He moves before momentum turns against him. That's the difference between men who feel blindsided and men who feel clear. They didn't lose the woman. They lost the timing, or they learned to keep it. You've seen the phase now. Not as a theory, not as a vague idea, but as a process with a direction, a shape, and an ending. Once you recognize it, you can't unsee it. You understand that what looks like calm is often conclusion, that what feels like stability can be the final quiet before separation locks in. This isn't meant to scare you. It's meant to strip away the last illusion that keeps men passive while outcomes harden around them. Because phases don't punish ignorance, they move through it. What matters next is understanding what ultimately decides the outcome of every phase. Phases begin in perception, but they end in respect. That's the line most men cross without realizing it. Desire may move first. Engagement may fade. Neutrality may settle in. But once respect erodes, nothing can hold desire in place again. Love can survive disrespect for a while. Habit can survive it. Loyalty can survive it. Desire cannot. And that's why the next door matters more than any before it. In the next episode, warning: when respect dies, desire can never stay. You'll see why respect is the final anchor in attraction. Why once it's gone, nothing you do can recreate genuine desire. And why men who ignore this truth keep repeating the same ending with different faces. You'll understand how respect erodes quietly. How men unknowingly accelerate its loss, and how recognizing that erosion early is the difference between recalibration and replacement. If this felt uncomfortably accurate, subscribe. Not because it feels good to hear, but because it cuts through the comfort that keeps men late. Comfort delays reality. Comfort tells you to relax, to wait, to assume things will resolve themselves. Awareness does the opposite. Awareness sharpens timing. It gives you the chance to move while movement still matters, to act while direction is still flexible, to exit or recalibrate without losing yourself in the process. This channel isn't here to reassure you that everything will be fine. It's here to make sure you're not asleep while things are being decided without you. Awareness lets you move before it's too late. And once you understand how phases end in respect, you stop being surprised by outcomes and start recognizing the moment where your response actually counts.